A bodybuilder meets a woman at a bar, and after a few drinks, they decide to head back to his place. Things heat up in the bedroom, and as they start making out, he stands up and begins to undress. He takes off his shirt, flexes his massive biceps, and says, "See these, baby? That's 1,000 pounds of dynamite." She bites her lip, clearly impressed. Then he drops his pants, flexes his bulging thighs, and says, "And these? Another 1,000 pounds of dynamite." She's practically drooling at this point. Finally, he pulls off his underwear. Suddenly, the woman grabs her purse and bolts for the door. He manages to catch her and asks, "Whoa, what's the rush?" She looks at him wide-eyed and says, "With 2,000 pounds of dynamite and such a short fuse, I thought you were about to blow." A woman was fed up with her husband constantly farting in bed. Every night, it was the same routine, loud, smelly, and relentless. "Can't you stop?" she'd plead. "It's making me sick." He'd just laugh and say, "It's natural, I can't help it." She warned him, "One day you're going to fart so hard you'll blow your guts out." Years passed, and the nightly gas attacks continued. Then, one Christmas morning, as she was prepping the turkey, she looked at the bowl of turkey innards, gizzards, neck, liver, and an evil idea struck her. She quietly crept upstairs where her husband was snoring away. Giggling to herself, she gently pulled back the covers, stretched the waistband of his boxers, and dumped the turkey guts inside. Then she waited. Moments later, there was the usual trumpet blast, followed by a horrified scream. She heard frantic footsteps as he bolted to the bathroom. She was on the floor, laughing so hard she could barely breathe. About 20 minutes later, he came downstairs, pale, shaking, and wearing blood-stained boxers. She bit her lip, trying not to burst out laughing. Finally, she asked, What happened?" He looked at her with wide, terrified eyes and said, "Honey, you were right all along. I farted my guts out." She nearly lost it, but managed to ask, "Oh my God, are you okay?" He shuddered and whispered, "Yeah, but with the grace of God, some Vaseline and 2 fingers, I think I got most of it back in." A blonde is on vacation when she runs out of money. Desperate to contact her mom for help, she heads to an internet cafe and approaches the guy at the front desk. "Hi," she says. "I'm completely broke, but I really need to email my mom. Is there any way I could do it for free?" The guy leans in, lowers his voice, and asks, "Do you really need to contact your mother?" "Yes," she replies. "It's important." "And would you do anything to send that message?" he asks, raising an eyebrow. The blonde hesitates, but then sighs. "Yes, I'd do anything." He grins and says, "All right then, follow me to the back room." She follows him, nerves kicking in. In the back, he slowly pulls down his pants and then his underwear. "Okay," he says. "You know what to do." She kneels down, takes a deep breath, leans in close, and whispers, "Hello, Mom. Can you hear me?" Two friends are walking through a nature park when they spot a rare, beautiful squirrel. "Should we take it with us?" one asks. "Sure," the other replies, "but hide it in your pants in case we run into a ranger." So he slips the squirrel into his underpants, and they continue walking. Sure enough, near the park exit, a ranger stops them. "Hey guys, did you take anything from the park?" "Nope, nothing at all," they answer. But the guy with the squirrel starts twitching and making strange noises. The ranger eyes them suspiciously. "You sure?" "Absolutely," they insist. But the guy's noises get louder. Grunts, squeaks, and the occasional yelp. The ranger starts to walk away when the guy suddenly screams, dives into his pants, and yanks out the squirrel, tossing it into the bushes. Later in jail, his friend yells, "Why the hell did you take the squirrel out? We almost got away!" The guy groans, "Man, I tried, I really did. First it nibbled my nuts, I could handle that. Then it tried crawling into the hole. I still held on, but when it started packing my nuts into the hole, I just couldn't take it anymore." One morning, Sheila, an Aussie housewife, stepped out of the shower and slipped on the bathroom floor. Instead of falling forwards or backwards, she did the splits and suctioned herself to the tiles. Panicked, she yelled, "Bruce! Bruce!" Her husband came rushing in, eyes wide. "Crikey, Sheila, you've bloody suctioned yourself to the floor!" Bruce tugged at her arms, but she wouldn't budge. Scratching his head, he said, "Hang on, love, I'll go get my mate Cobber." A few minutes later, Cobber arrived, and they both gave it a go, pulling with all their might. After several failed attempts, Cobber sighed. "No way, mate. Time for plan B." Bruce frowned. "What's plan B?" "I'll nip home, grab my hammer and chisel, and we'll break the tiles under her." "Good thinking, Cobber." Bruce nodded. "While you do that, I'll stay here and play with her nipples." Cobber blinked in shock. "Play with her nipples? Mate, this isn't exactly the time for that." Bruce grinned. "Nah, but if I can get her wet enough, we can slide her into the kitchen where the tiles are cheaper." Legion Prison sat deep in the Arctic, housing the world's most dangerous supervillains. At first, Warden Crag had things under control. A few villains without their gadgets, easy. But as the cells filled, so did his headaches. Mecha Slayer kept challenging Robocon to fights. The Great Gazoo wouldn't stop stealing people's underpants. Mrs. Thunder complained about everything, the food, the movies, and her midnight thunderclaps kept everyone awake. Even Dr. Grimbone, usually the calmest villain, was getting twitchy. One day at lunch, the warden sat with Grimbone, sighing. "There's just not enough room. Everyone's in each other's space, and I'm one complaint away from losing my mind." Grimbone leaned in. "You need a project. Give us tools. Something to work on together. It'll keep us busy. And sane." The warden scoffed. "I'm not handing you lot tools. I'd have a jailbreak before lunchtime." Instead, he tried team-building activities. Disaster. Forrest Thorn kept poking people with branches. Jack Trickster mocked the Big Cheese until he cried. Not a single icebreaker finished. Then came exercise time. Worse. Brawn and Elephant Man threw weights at each other. Speedy Gonbambas lapped the track 200 times. Backwards. By day's end, the gym was wrecked. Then the real crisis hit. The lights went out. Heaters shut down. The Arctic cold crept in fast. Backup generators? Dead. The warden had hours before the entire prison froze. Desperate, he stormed to Grimbone's cell. "All right, you want a project? Fix this mess, keep us alive!" Grimbone smiled slyly. "Now that's a real puzzle." He gathered the villains. "We need power, fast, and we'll need everyone." The geniuses drew up blueprints. The muscle-bound villains hauled machinery. The speedsters fetched tools at lightning speed. The tanks handled live wires without flinching. In hours, they transformed an empty cell into a roaring generator. Lights flickered back, heaters hummed to life, and the chill faded. The warden, stunned, shook Grimbone's hand. "I didn't think it was possible. You pulled it off." Grimbone grinned. "Told you. We just needed the right challenge." The warden nodded, then frowned. "But this whole cell's now a generator. Where am I supposed to put Bunglehop?" Grimbone winked. "Well, you know what they say. A mighty quandary makes a powerhouse of the cell." Two old women, Doris and Ethel, sit on a porch smoking cigarettes when it starts to rain. Ethel keeps puffing away, but Doris's cigarette gets wet and goes out. As she grumbles, she notices Ethel calmly smoking, her cigarette perfectly dry. Curious, Doris watches as Ethel pulls out a condom, snips off the tip with tiny sewing scissors, slides it over her cigarette like a little raincoat, and continues smoking without missing a beat. "Ethel!" Doris exclaims. "Where on earth did you get that?" "Oh, just at the pharmacy," Ethel replies. "I grab a few anytime the forecast calls for rain. I hate wasting a good Marlboro." The next day, Doris checks the weather. More rain on the way. She heads to the pharmacy, stands in front of the condom display, but hesitates. She smokes Camels, not Marlboros, and isn't sure what size to get. A young clerk notices her puzzling over the shelf. "Ma'am, can I help you find something?" Doris nods. "Yes, dear. I'm looking for condoms." The clerk raises an eyebrow. What size do you need?" Doris pauses thoughtfully. "I'm not sure, just as long as it fits a camel." On Jack's wedding day, his father pulled him aside for some advice. "Son, when I married your mother, the first thing I did when we got home was take off my pants, hand them to her, and say, 'Try these on.' She did, but they were way too big. She said, 'I can't wear these, they're huge.' And I told her, 'Exactly. I wear the pants in this family, and I always will.'" The father smiled proudly. "And son, ever since that day, we've never had a single problem." Taking his dad's advice, Jack did the same thing on his wedding night. But after he handed Jill his pants and gave her the speech, she smirked, slipped off her panties, and handed them to him. "Your turn, try these on," she said. Jack struggled, but couldn't get them past his thighs. "I can't fit into these," he said. "Exactly," Jill replied, "and if you don't change your attitude, you never will." The IRS decides to audit Grandpa and summons him to the office. The auditor isn't surprised when Grandpa shows up with his attorney. The auditor starts, "Sir, you live an extravagant lifestyle with no steady job and you claim it's all from gambling winnings. That's hard to believe." "I'm a great gambler," Grandpa replies. "I can prove it. How about a demonstration?" The auditor, intrigued, says, "All right, go ahead." Grandpa leans in. "I'll bet you $1,000 I can bite my own eye." The auditor thinks no way and agrees. Grandpa pops out his glass eye and bites it. The auditor is stunned. "Want to double down?" Grandpa asks. "I'll bet you $2,000 I can bite my other eye." The auditor looks Grandpa over carefully. He's clearly not blind, so he takes the bet. Grandpa grins, removes his dentures, and bites his good eye. Now, $3,000 down, the auditor is sweating. Grandpa leans in again. "Double or nothing. I'll bet $6,000 I can stand on one side of your desk, pee into that wastebasket on the other side, and not get a single drop on your desk." The auditor figures there's no way this old man can pull that off, so he agrees. Grandpa unzips, strains, but misses completely, peeing all over the desk. The auditor jumps for joy. "Finally, I win!" Meanwhile, Grandpa's attorney groans and buries his head in his hands. The auditor, puzzled, asks, "What's wrong with you?" The attorney mutters, "This morning, Grandpa bet me $25,000 he could walk into an IRS office, pee all over a desk, and leave with the auditor smiling." At the gym, a guy is working out hard and starts sweating, so he takes off his shirt. A blonde nearby winks and says, "Wow, nice pecs." He smirks and replies, "Thanks, babe, 100 pounds of pure dynamite." He goes back to lifting. A bit later, feeling hotter, he strips off his pants. The blonde winks again. "And those calves? Impressive." He grins. "Another 100 pounds of pure dynamite." Finally, drenched in sweat, he pulls off his underwear. Without missing a beat, the blonde lets out a scream and bolts for the door. He chases after her, puzzled. "Hey, what's wrong? Why'd you run?" She yells back, "I'm not sticking around a ton of dynamite when I just saw how short the fuse is."